I didn't realize how cool this battle would be when I first saw it. I was like, yeah, I do like these two, but eh. Then I really thought about it, and it didn't leave me cold any longer, because I remember just how much I do like Grey and Esdeath. I'm a big fan of Fairy Tail. It's important to me, and it was my gateway anime, so of course I liked it. Well, I guess gateway manga would be more accurate. Although I read Dragon Ball Z first. Well, I guess just Dragon Ball first. So it wasn't my gateway manga, but I didn't watch the Dragon Ball anime because of filler. I also quite like I Can't Make a Kill. I feel like the anime kind of drops the ball, at least near the end it does. And I don't really have a problem with it being super edgy. But I really like these two series. Grey is easily in my top 5 favorite Fairy Tail characters. Oh, would you look at that, the top 5 happen to be some of the only characters with meaningful character development. And Esdeath is just straight up my favorite I Can't Make a Kill character. Oh hey, and look, both boys and girls get eye candy with this matchup. It's a win-win. I was originally going to do some gag where I'm like, why did the anime make Esdeath's boobs so much larger than the manga? But I feel like that's a kind of question that answers itself. But this battle does give me shivers, and I hope it's good and doesn't just give me a chilly reception. But who do I think will win? Well, this is the first battle of the season where I'm not really sure. Like, I got an idea of who's going to win, but I can't be certain of who should win. First off, let's talk power output. These two are both incredibly powerful with their ice powers, but surprisingly, it's not just Grey that's physically powerful. Esdeath was capable of matching Tatsumi in Incursio, and Tatsumi ain't a weak motherfucker. He's able to take on Budo, who can make a multi-megaton storm. Esdeath could take on between hundreds of thousands to a million soldiers. The manga says both, so it's a bit hard to say, including multiple Teigu users and Akame at the time. Oh, and even with one arm, she was able to one-shot Tyrant Tatsumi, and even with that with just one arm, she could also take on little Warhorn Akame for a bit. Esdeath also has Ice Storm Commander-in-Chief, which caused this. Yeah. Esdeath with one action can freeze the majority of a country. Oh, I should mention, those last few impressive feats was because of this, because it also increases her power output. So the last feats were like she took on a bunch of soldiers and one-shot Tyrant Tatsumi and took on little Warhorn Akame was because she used Ice Storm Commander-in-Chief. She's also supposedly more deadly than Shikuteiza in this state, and he could do this, but I'm not entirely sure if the statement of her danger is related to raw power or simply due to the fact that she's more of a threat just generally. She has supreme skill and speed that Outthing doesn't have, at least not to the same degree. Esdeath is also faster than Leone can see, literally dodge lightning, and outsped Akame, even after she was weakened, and with that Ice Storm Commander-in-Chief. Akame meanwhile dodged the same lightning bolt Esdeath did, so Esdeath's at least as fast as that lightning bolt. Like, it'd be hard to say that she's slower because they didn't see it coming until after it was already launched. Esdeath tanked Nasty Voice, which can crack bones, as if it was nothing. She survived this massive drop, and survived a full-blown punch from Stage 2 Tatsumi, which did this. Whew. Keeping in mind, Esdeath primarily uses ice to protect herself from blows, but it's still impressive nonetheless that the ice could resist impacts like this. Esdeath can make skyscraper-sized chunks of ice, fly, create new limbs if they're severed, and even use her ice to make things weaker so she can shatter them, like Susanoo and Murasame. And finally, her big ice walls could no-sell Tyrant Tatsumi's attacks. Now, how powerful is Grey? Very. It's hard to find meaningful strengths of feat from Grey, but he has been able to rival the physical might of Natsu Dragneel, who is, well, strong as fuck. He has him destroying a giant fucker with a single punch. Now, let's not misconstrue this as him beating the god of assholes with a casual punch. This is clearly one of his more powerful attacks, but Grey's own more powerful attacks rival Natsu's, so he's significantly faster than Battle of Fairy Tail arc characters, and even back then they could dodge lightning. And he is able to rival the power of Silver, who froze the Eternal Flame into over 20 megatons, which is a couple, it's decent. Grey is also able to take on characters that can wipe out mountains, and why am I doing this? Let's be real here. Esdeath and base Grey is not what anyone's looking at here. What matters is if Esdeath can kill Devil Slayer Grey Fullbuster. And that's where the difficulty comes in. As Devil Slayer, Grey has some really impressive feats. He one-shotted Tempester, he hurt Mardgear, and apparently he even beat Mira Jane at one point. I took a second to look at Versus Wiki to see if they had any cool calculations for Grey, but they don't source this, or sometimes they source things, and it's like, okay, I can trust that. But they don't source him beating Mira Jane and Elfman, but like, Grey is obviously stronger than Elfman, and Mira Jane's a demon. In fact, Tempester and Mardgear, they're all demons, which his magic is particularly strong against. So how powerful does that make him? It's hard to say, because he's specifically powerful against them. Although his freezing of whirlwinds is still impressive as fuck. And you could say that by comparing to dragon slayers, who despite having magic specifically to take on dragons, totally failed to take on dragons, that I guess you could say the Devil Slayer being as strong as devils didn't really matter much in his fight with Tempestor and Mind Gear, but to me it seems really obvious that Devil Slayer magic is more potent on demons than Dragon Slayer magic is potent on dragons. At least for these characters at the time. I don't know about 100-Year Quest. Of course, I'm willing to bet Grey's power output could match Esdeath's. It's much harder to go through all of Grey's feats in a timely manner due to Fairy Tail's length, while Esdeath is not only super dead, but also didn't appear for nearly as long in a Kamega kill as Grey has in Fairy Tail, because Grey is alive and Fairy Tail's longer. But I think what really matters in this battle is one of these two things: Grey's ability to consume ice to replenish his power, and Esdeath's time stop. Ice Storm Commander-in-Chief is not the trump card of Esdeath that's going to give her much help. It does power her up, but that's a lot of ice, and that's a lot of ice for Grey to consume. And also, people have made this into like a country level feat, but this is not a feat of attacking power, because no one died from this. She did this big attack, no one died. So Grey would survive the initial blast. He's not going to be weeded out by the ice because he's resistant to the cold, and he's just going to have a lot of ice to eat. They're both, I'm fairly certain, I think Esdeath's resistant to ice, but even if she was, Grey's resistance just reaches a level beyond Esdeath's. Unlike her, we've seen him take attacks from enemies that use ice and are even stronger than he was, like Silver. So Esdeath's going to quickly realize when using her ice that it's no use. And heck, even when fighting a guy whose ice was so cold it was freezing Grey's ice, I don't even know how that works, he was able to copy that technique and break the other guy's ice too. So his ice make magic is so powerful it can freeze other people's ice, which I think gives it a leg up on Esdeath's resistance to ice. Also, here's him tanking an ice attack that froze Natsu Dragneel's flames and Natsu himself, and here's him tanking a literal volcanic eruption of ice. And if you want to say Esdeath's ice is way stronger and faster due to Ice Blah Blah Chief's stupid name, Grey also once created a blizzard that covered a large landscape with a single attack, clashing with Invel. And he was once even able to take on END Natsu, who yes is a demon and weak to him, but let's be real here. The power advantage of END Natsu at his very peak, like END Natsu at the strongest he could be, would stop Esdeath and Grey at the same time. Physically, I think Grey probably has the advantage, but it's hard to say because Esdeath has fought characters who've done, well, that. Although there are some really impressive feats from characters Grey is able to rival as well, like Natsu or even weaker versions of Urza. I think it's safe to say that Grey is far more powerful in 100-Year Quest than Urza was in the Daedalus arc. And she did that. Oh, and by the way, in the manga, this is all that's left of that entire floating island. Although Esdeath also rivals Tatsumi, who does this, which overpowers this attack, and, well, that attacks this, you know. Whether or not Esdeath scales to stage 4 Tatsumi, I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember what the strongest form of Tatsumi is. I think Tyrant is probably stronger, but I don't have the months of time Death Battle has to research this shit. In speed, both have lightning typing capabilities, so whoever is faster isn't going to be so much faster that they instantly win with it alone. You just wait for them to find some calculation I missed that puts one of these guys 10 times over the other. This is an extremely close matchup. And their ice isn't going to be super effective on each other. Although what does matter is that Esdeath could freeze time and space. Now, I do have to ask, could she freeze Grey? First off, Esdeath can only use this like once a day and it takes a lot out of it, so if she doesn't win with it, that's going to be a problem. But also, Incursio could adapt to the time stop, which says something, because that means Esdeath's time stop, it doesn't completely freeze time. Incursio was stopped, but time was still passing enough for it to be able to adapt to the time stop. Now, Incursio was still ridiculously fast to adapt, but that means that a period of time still passed after the supposed time stop occurred, because I refuse to believe Incursio is Jiren and able to outspeed and overpower time itself. It makes more sense that the time stop doesn't completely stop time and space, but merely slows it down enough where it's nearly completely stopped. To most enemies, it isn't much of a difference though. However, the way in which her Teigu, Demon's Extract, works is that it just creates ice. So Mahapadma, her time stop, is most likely her making it so cold and frosty that it affects space and time. It's just really weird, because Demon's Extract does not have its own trump card, like Little Warhorn. It doesn't have one of those. But Esdeath made this time stop using the already existing abilities of Demon's Extract. So either it uses ice and cold somehow to stop time, or it's a big fucking plot hole, because Esdeath just invented a completely new power to her thing, to her Tegu, that is completely unrelated to what it does. This would be like if Akame invented an ability with Murasame that could cut through time. Except it's not that it uses the venom to cut through time. No, it just cuts through time. It'd be really strange. So would Grey be immune or resistant? I'm not entirely sure. Grey has taken damage from ice before, but he's also, well, in Devil Slayer, pretty much immune to it. I mean, how many times has Fire Dragon Natsu been harmed by flames? I think Zankara's God Slayer is like the only time, and God Slayer is like an above level to Dragon Slayer. I think God Slayer has some advantages on Dragon Slayer. Like, God Slayer can eat any flame, but Dragon Slayer can't eat God Flames. Although Dragon Slayers have beaten God Slayers in the past. Although Wendy and Shelly, said her name, were able to rival and equal each other. Anyway, it depends on how Mahapadma work. We don't know necessarily if it uses ice to freeze space and time, or if it just somehow has the ability to affect the fourth dimension. Anyway, if he is affected, then yeah, Esdeath could definitely claim a win. But if he's resistant to it, Esdeath is not going to be able to use time stop to her advantage. I think with Death Battle though, it's most likely that either way, Grey is going to win. Now I want to keep in mind, I'm not taking a stance in either direction yet. I think this is a battle definitely warranting a debate, because there are probably even more factors than what I've considered here. And of course, like, yeah, Esdeath can summon an army of ice, but do you really want to throw that much ice at a guy who can eat ice to make himself more powerful? Like, that's the thing here. Grey can just eat all the ice Esdeath throws at him, and that's fine. But I don't know. I think that people say that Esdeath is this country-level beast because she did Ice Storm Commander-in-Chief, but that's not going to matter to Grey. And that she was able to one-shot Tyrant Tatsumi, who took on Shikataza in his fourth state, and Tyrant stronger, I think, so that instantly means Esdeath is that powerful, even though I don't know how that works. I'm not necessarily sure if she is more powerful than that, but if she is, then, well, she's still that powerful with ice. If she throws a country-level ice attack at Devil Slayer Grey, and keeping in mind, Esdeath has to use Ice Storm Commander-in-Chief to reach that level of power. So, if she's going to do that, give Grey all of this stuff to eat and replenish his power, and then she's going to try to win against him with attacks that are country level, but also with ice, which Grey is resistant to, and she'll just eat the attacks literally, and replenish any damage done to him. Like, yes, technically, actually, I don't know if Devil Slayer magic replenishes magic or health. I think it's both. Okay, it seems like they can replenish their strength and enhance their power. That's what it says on the wiki. I'm going to trust the wiki. But that seems to be what it says. So I don't know if it'll matter. It matters, obviously, but I think that means it's going to replenish his health, like his strength and his attack power. He's going to get all his magic back by eating Esdeath's ice. So hitting him with ice is not going to help. But the thing is, with how Death Battle works, I think Grey's going to win. Esdeath's best way to win is to use Mahapadma and kill him. But I think that is less likely than Grey killing her before she can. Unless there are Esdeath feats of durability and speed that outclass Grey by a large margin, his nigh-complete immunity to ice is going to outdo Esdeath's resistances. Esdeath's use of ice to protect herself is not going to help. She can make ice to protect herself as armor or walls, yes, but Grey and Devil Slayer can manipulate other people's ice even if they were made from literally nothing, like Esdeath's ice. So Grey is going to be able to use that against her. So really, from a point of view with Death Battle's viewpoint, with their mindset, both of their ice powers are pretty much nullified by their resistances, but Grey's resistances are better. If Esdeath is not so much stronger and faster that she outdoes Grey's Devil Slayer abilities, then her only way to win is going to be Mahapadma. And as we know, one ability that could give a win doesn't mean they're going to prevail in death battle necessarily. I could be proven wrong, but I feel like there's a good chance that people are going to be arguing in the comments anyway. Please be civil, guys. I'm not taking a stance on who I think should win, but just a prediction on who I think will win. I really like both these franchises and both these characters, but seriously, guys, if you want to start arguments, just chill out. It's not an issue that really warrants arguing. If Esdeath is within a similar league to Grey, like if she's like a couple tons of force higher or a couple mark faster, that shouldn't matter enough. It would matter. To death battle, being one mark faster than a character means you outspeed them to like a massive extent. Unless you're Sasuke and Hiei, in which they actually did it correctly, and even though one could be faster, it's not so much of a gap that it really just instantly means win. I'm complimenting Sasuke versus Hiei, shut up. But generally, unless as their stats are so far above Grey's that they just obliterate. Like, if their stats were equal, Grey would easily win, because Devil Slayer grants him an advantage on most of Esdeath's powers, while Mahapadma is Esdeath's only way of win, if their stats were equal. So it really matters on stats here, I think, at least, for Death Battle's point of view. There are things that I might not even be considering here, that I might have forgotten or might not know about, but they're not... You guys can have a talk about it in the comments. Just don't freak out over me saying I think Grey is going to win, because like everyone seems to think, or at least a lot of people seem to think Esdeath's going to win. And I understand it, because like Esdeath in universe of Akame ga Kill is like the strongest character. Like, it took her taking on like hundreds of thousands of people, and then taking on multiple Teigu users at once, and then getting her arm cut off by surprise by Akame, and then taking on Little Warhorn Akame with her arm missing for her to die. That's what it took for her to die. Grey, however, even in universe, is really powerful, but he's not one of the strongest. Like, even in 100-Year Quest, like Laxus and Urza and probably even Gargiel, Natsu, of course, they're all stronger when they're at their peaks than Grey is. I just hope they don't fuck up and forget Grey even has Devil Slayer magic. You might think it's impossible, but they also completely forgot that Urza had the Nakagami armor, so it's far from impossible. Oh, also I should mention, Iced Shell is completely meaningless, as Grey will die when using it. Esdeath, however, will merely be frozen forever until the magic is dispelled. So technically, Esdeath would win if Grey used it, because even if she's never freed from the Ice Shell, she also isn't going to die. Well, I mean, she could die. Deliora died in Ice Shell, but she is not going to die until long after Grey dies, because Grey is going to die the moment he uses it, and she's going to die, like, years later. Probably of malnutrition. And I get, you could technically say that Grey is going to become the Ice Shell, so he's not going to be dead with the moment he uses it. So, like, I guess if you want to say that that means Grey is technically alive, then I guess Ice Shell would win. Because if Esdeath is never free, because she wouldn't be freed in her universe, because there's no magic in Akame ga Kill. There might be magic, but none that I know of. It's all Teigu's in Akame ga Kill, but there's no ability to dispel Ice Shell in Akame ga Kill. So technically, I guess in Ice Shell, Esdeath could stay in there so long that she dies, while Grey is the ice, so he's just immortal now. But nah, not counting that. Does not count that.